Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, whoops. Hello. Welcome to another week. It's December 7th. And December 7th, wait a minute. A day that shall live in infamy. Boy. Sorry about my absence on Friday. That was not expected. Something happened to my body. Hang on. I'm finally going to take my coat off. It's cold, in case you hadn't noticed, in the studio. I got so much to talk about today. I do not know where to start. But something tells me I have started. Let me talk about something that my son pointed out to me, and I've been hearing it ever since he did. In fact, just heard it about 15 minutes ago again, and it's being said by all the newscasters, many of the politicians. I don't know if the president did. I don't think he did. And that is that San Bernardino, and it's just said constantly, the worst terrorist attack on this country since 9/11. That's what I keep hearing from the news people. And when my son heard it, he looked up and he said, "What? It's not true." And I agree with him. That's not true. There have been worse domestic terrorist attacks. I mean, if the way we rank them has to do with body count, then Sandy Hook. We're not calling that domestic terror? No, because that was like a crazy person. What do we call terror? It is terror when parents are afraid to send their children to school because there have been so many school shootings. That's terror. That's terrorism. It's domestic terrorism. People are afraid to go to theaters. is domestic terrorism. There was more deaths in the theater in Aurora, Colorado. What do we call what is this parsing? The minute a Muslim does it, it's terror. And everybody agrees that's terror. When was it not terror at the Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado? That wasn't a terrorist attack. That it wasn't a terrorist attack on the church in Charleston? I don't understand what we now say terror is and isn't. And apparently, for the media now, the only thing that is terror is if it's committed by a Muslim. It seems to be that what I can't figure out any other thing, nor can my son. So Sandy Hook, to their mind, wasn't terror. And the Charleston church bombing was not, a church shooting was not terror. Aurora was not terror. They're all terrorism because they all terrify. They all change our sense of security. They, in fact, change a lot of people's behavior. Increasingly, Americans are fearful to do common, everyday things like go to a theater, send their kids to school, go to a shopping mall. It's hard to come up with a venue now that hasn't experienced a terror attack. A subway, an airplane, a train, a this, a that. Everywhere that you might be, we have had an attack, unexpected, that has terrorized. So that said, the president's speech last night was exceedingly narrow. It was only addressing Muslim terror, correct? Yeah. And I understand why he did that for tactical and political reasons, that with so much bellicosity constantly on the news and terror inducement coming from Republican candidates. Be afraid, be very afraid. I will keep you safe. The president must have felt that he had to say to the country, I'm doing what I can. But I mean, it won't in any way, because it was a tempered, rational, relatively low-key speech. That ain't gonna make anybody very happy. And the president just stuck to ISIS because he didn't enfold into his speech the attack on Planned Parenthood that's the same week, or the fact that race and religion and availability of guns, all these things are bound up together. And terror can come from so many different places. The common thread, frankly, is the guns. So what I really want to talk about, and I said this last week, I must be odd. I'm not saying I'm courageous, but I must be oddly wired in that these things don't make me personally feel fear. And that's why I go so nuts when I hear like these newscasters always saying, and people are terrified, and this is horrifying, and it's so terrifying, frightening, because that kind of repetition does what? It just makes people think, God, I'm supposed to be scared out of my mind. And if they already were feeling a bit anxious, it'll ratchet it up. And I am blown away by the reality that terror is with us, terrorism as a tactic is with us, because it works so well. It plays on our human nature. The New York Times asked anybody who felt that all of this terror had made their lives different to please let them know about the fears that they felt after these mass shootings. And over 5,000 Americans wrote in to the New York Times. And it's just simply amazing to me what they told them. Some people say that, a lot of people said, that if they're in a theater and someone walks in late, they immediately sort of stiffen and look. One 64-year-old guy in Virginia said he never goes to a theater anymore. He can't concentrate on a movie, thinking that at any minute he might be blown away. So he only watches movies at home now. A lot of people said every time someone in their office was fired, they're terrified that the person will return and mow them all down. And what the shrinks call this is anticipatory anxiety. And millions upon millions upon millions of Americans now are suffering from it. Anticipatory anxiety, worrying about something that in all likelihood will not happen to them. I mean, the odds, again, ridiculously small. But because of the attention paid to these horrific events, the fear of it happening to, I'm not going to say us because I don't have this problem, but apparently most people do. Tracy Gill, 32, works at a coffee shop in Durham, North Carolina. She never will go to a movie on opening night now. When she does go to a movie, she always sits in the back row. A 32-year-old woman in Green Bay, Wisconsin, told the New York Times that she and her husband, listen to this, discuss a plan whenever they are going somewhere outside their house. A plan of how they would find each other or get... I mean, if you're doing that every time you head to the store, every time you go out to an event or get on an airplane, your life is actually being ruled by the terrorists. Here's a guy. He's from Louisiana. I was in the grocery store last weekend with my 4-year-old. I found myself scouting places I could hide my little boy. Here's someone else. If I'm in a shopping mall, I'm always aware of what's around me and where I can hide, where the closest exit is, where to go, especially if I have my grandchild with me. I think I have to understand what's going on with Americans in this regard, because it will inform how we react. And the fact that so many Americans are playing with their fear right into the hands of ISIS, it terrifies me. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of the terror that they are feeling, because it's over the top. It's not rational. It is not rational. An Army veteran wrote to the Times and said that he actually felt safer in war zones than on the streets of the United States. Might be a black man. So, a very real fear of being caught up in some kind of a massive, murderous rampage has settled bang into Americans' consciousnesses to an extraordinary degree. Are you one of them? Some people say a day does not go by that they don't think about this. People are able to recite with precision how often they think about a mass shooting touching their lives. Some 4 times a day it'll occur to them. Every time they see... So stop and think what this means. If you're... Stop and think what it means if you're a Muslim American. Wow. So... I guess what scares me is how so many people are willing to play on this aspect of human nature. This sense of terror. That's what's got Donald Trump in the position he is. He's playing it. He's playing it like a fiddle. He's not saying anything specific. He's just saying, I'll kill him. I'll keep you safe. Don't ask me how. I'm going to do it. I'll do this. I'll do that. He never says how. And that is a Big Daddy, Big Rich Daddy coming in and telling people that is enough, apparently, to ameliorate or tamp down this fear that so many people feel. Now, studies, psychological studies, have shown over and over and over again that when somebody is confronted with an act that reminds them of their own mortality, they will immediately retreat, essentially, into their strongly held cultural beliefs. So, if a person's cultural worldview is moralistic or nationalistic or xenophobic, after a terror attack like this that brings their own mortality bang right up into their face, they retreat more and more so into whatever it was. We all become more so. We glom more so on to whatever things we do hold on to as truths. Apparently, this kind of aspect of human psychology has been studied all over the world, different cultures, and they all come up with the same conclusion. So after a terror attack, if we are somebody who believes that a gun will make us safer, will protect us, then our reaction will mean that we're going to go out and get a gun after a terror attack. We have seen something, albeit on the news, we have seen something that terrifies us, that brings to us this sort of absolute, uncontrollable, wrong place, wrong time, can happen anywhere to anybody kind of a fear. And if you're a person who does believe that if I had a gun, I can protect myself and my family, then believe me, you run out and get a gun. It explains why after every terror attack, and by terror attack I mean all of them, doesn't have to be a Muslim, people run out and buy guns. I used to think the reason was that they think, now the president, now the government is going to come and take all our guns because they're going to say, look what happens with all these guns, so I better go grab as many as I can before I can't grab any more. That's apparently not what does it. What does it really is people's terror makes them believe more so in whatever they believed before. So if a person is prone to blame white supremacists or Muslims or whatever, we simply become more fearful and more certain that it's Muslims and white supremacists. And whatever it is, anytime any of these actions sort of help us solidify, they help us solidify these sort of reptilian responses. The response is, I don't want to die. It's as basic a thing as there is in human nature. I don't want to die. I just want to read one little thing to you here. It's real quick. Psychological experiments found that being reminded both of one's own mortality and the attacks of 9/11 increased support for military interventions in the Middle East among people who identified as politically conservative. So, if you get a group of people and you talk to them about, you're mortal, you're going to die, and then you talk to them about 9/11, and then you do whatever other things they do to ascertain that they then say, they want a military response immediately. Guess what? People who identify as liberals, there is no similar reaction. None. Caller, go ahead, please.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Hi, Mike.
I think what people are afraid of is the fact that we're powerless. We're pretty much powerless throughout our day. And that gun gives people the sense that there's something they could do, when in reality, they're probably more powerless now.
Right. Well, the powerlessness, right. So you go back to how do I feel safe? Some people feel safe when somebody like Big Daddy Donald Trump, so sure of himself and projecting strength, tells them he'll keep them safe, right?
Or when my husband has a gun and he'll protect us in the movie theater.
That's right.
Right. But the reality of the fact is that nothing we do can give us complete control or power.
I don't think, my sense is, what I'm learning about my fellow citizens is that an awful lot, and perhaps the majority, can't accept that, what you're saying. Can't accept the sort of chaos and uncertainty of life, and the fact that in reality, you got no control. As the bumper sticker says, shit happens.
And what's interesting to me is I am powerless, or we are powerless, but we can influence our environment to have choices, to become less victims.
Yes.
But that's not with a gun,
no.
Because a gun, the likelihood that you'll be a victim of someone in your house using that gun against you or yourself is remarkably higher than the likelihood that it'll prevent a terrorist from shooting you in a movie theater.
Right.
But what we could do is say, God, we're poisoning ourselves. Rates of kids with asthma has quadrupled in the past 10 years because we're polluting the environment. Let's stop polluting the environment. So we have ways that we can influence the bad things that happen to us, but those are complicated compared to let's get a gun and I feel safe.
Yeah. So that's why. I mean, my God, is there a gun left unbought in this country? It's just amazing. Man, almost makes you think that Smith & Wesson might be in cahoots with ISIS.
Yeah, really.
Jeez. I don't know. So I think the biggest fear I have is human nature.
Yeah,
it's
and
not.
It's that feeling that addicts do this. They put their feelings over their intellect.
Right.
I feel I want to get high, so I get high, even though I know it's going to hurt me. Addicts do that, and it's sort of what the hysterical, and I use that word specifically, hysterical Americans are doing. They are putting their emotion over their intellect. Otherwise, they would say 1 in 4 Americans die of cancer every year. 1 in 28 million die from a terrorist attack.
That's right, and it just doesn't. But media is complicit here too. Media and any politician who picks up on this for their own self-aggrandizement. Why don't people realize, why are there terrorists? There are terrorists because it works and because they know it's easy to make us feel afraid. And they want us to be afraid so that we will overreact irrationally and fearfully. Plays right into their hands. Knowing that, you would think that a rational being would say, well, I know what you're trying to do, but here's what I'm doing. I'm not buying a gun. I'm not going to be afraid, you sons of bitches. That's the right response. I'm going to be smart.
We read newspapers. We read newspapers, which is more than Back at 5 will tell you how to save your life. We have discourse about this so we can talk each other out of our panic. I don't think if you have 3 jobs and 2 kids and paying for daycare and a husband that's a drunk or whatever, those people, lots of people can't engage in their surroundings because they're so busy trying to survive, which is another tactic of the GOP.
Oh, dear. I don't know.
Do you not agree?
You might be giving them too much credit on that one. You're saying it's actually a tactic of theirs to make people have to work 3 jobs so they won't be able to think?
Yeah. I think
you
that's
really?
the whole overarching entity of the GOP, is to create two environments. One where people are really poor and one where people are really rich, because poor people are easy to exploit.
I don't think they consciously do that. They'd be evil. Oh, your silence says everything. No.
Every other word's cutting out. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then I was reading things. Hey, Mike.
That's
thanks
better.
as usual. But thanks as usual.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. So there's an expert on terror. You know, they're all over the place now. Hey, you wanna? Here's a growth industry. Become an expert on terror. You will spend your days on cable television. You can write op-ed pieces. You can give speeches and be paid lots of money. Anyway, there is a woman who is an expert on terror. And she says this. People often wonder, how afraid should we be? My answer, she says, is that it depends on who you are, where you live, and what you do. In other words, she's saying, make an assessment. Really. I'll tell you who should be terrified in America right now. Black men, maybe Muslims. Even with the rise in these mass casualty events, the likelihood that you will be caught up in such an event personally is teeny tiny. You are much more likely to die in a car accident. Do you still get in cars and drive? You're very brave. And here's how she ends her piece, because this is what I say constantly. And God, I think my people who believe like me are losing this battle. If we are to prevail in the war on terrorism, we need to remember that what we aspire to in this country, the freedoms we aspire to, can only come if we accept great responsibilities. And those responsibilities involve not just fighting the terrorists. That's something that we should do. But every bit as important as fighting them is fighting our own terror. And that's the part that a lot of Americans aren't willing to do. They give in to the terror, and thus, what did we say a lot after 9/11? The terrorists win. You can keep them from winning by refusing to be afraid. So every time anyone in a position of leadership stokes fear, a.k.a. every Republican running for the presidency, they are doing such a disservice to this country, and they are playing hand in hand with the very terrorists they are railing against. I'm afraid of the fear. I'm afraid of the fear. I'm not afraid of these friggin' ISIS assholes. Come on. Did you always think there was a boogeyman under your bed? Come on. Seems to me so often after so many incidents, all I find myself screaming is, suck it up! And I do it because you are part of the problem if you get scared. You can fight that. You can fight it with, you know what? You've been given something that allows you to fight it. And it's not a gun. It's your brain. Here's the best letter I've seen in a long time. From Hope Winthrop. What difference does it really make to the quality of life in America whether a mass shooting is carried out by a white supremacist, a mentally disturbed individual, a domestic ideologue, or a foreign terrorist? For those innocents killed and those who survive, the effect is the same. They are terrorized while going about their everyday lives. There is only one common denominator in all of this, and that is guns, especially automatic weapons. Get them off our streets. Dead is dead. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, they give this ISIS too much credit, I think.
Yes.
I don't think there is. I was reading an article about some Canadians that went over there to fight. They didn't join anything. They joined whatever it is that you fight against ISIL when you're over there. And they said that they got in. It takes the stages where you get into the really battle them, and they said a lot of them run the other way. So they're not the powerful whatever that they're making them out to be. The Republican Party.
Well, it's ISIS that has done its, as propagandists,
yeah,
they are amazing. And you cannot discount their, how adept they are at playing us. I mean, their beheadings, the carnage, the unbelievable stuff that they do, burning people alive, crucifying people. This is meant to terrorize, and man does it ever.
But Obama's right. They've slowed them down in Iraq and in Syria.
Yes.
They've cut them back. They're not taking over like they did before. You're not going to stop this terrorism in this country. You got crazy people in this country that might even say, hey, I want to be with ISIL. They'll say that.
Yeah, but so the thing is, though, there's a lot of crazy people in this country.
Yeah.
We know that. And here's the problem. They can get their hands on assault weapons.
Well,
why should any American, why should any citizen have the ability to have a military-style weapon?
Yeah.
For what purpose, may
no
I
reason.
ask?
I agree. And if you want to shoot one, can't you have ranges that have them?
Yeah, maybe. You could have a few ranges that have them if you get your rocks off
really
doing it.
Because you take them there anyway, unless you're going to kill a bunch of people. I mean, other than that, what else? What uses are they for?
Yeah.
Nothing.
They're for nothing. And obviously, the fact that they're so readily available and what has resulted since their ready availability, all these mass shootings by crazy people, just shows this is a mistake, and the Second Amendment and the Founding Fathers never, ever intended something so absurd.
But I can't get all worked up over this. I think terrorism is something you're going to have. It's always going to go on. You're not going to stop it completely. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And if people think that putting 100,000 troops over in Iraq or Syria. They're nuts. They're nuts. I mean,
when I hear anybody say to put more Americans, our military, our volunteer military, to put them back into a Middle East war, when we've had so much success with all the other ones and all of the blood of those young people, I'm not willing. Yeah, anybody who thinks that we need to go into Syria militarily, boots on the ground, as they say, then have their children be in those boots.
There's no
because they're not.
No. I would rather see them tighten up security here at home.
But you see, here's the thing. You can't, there's no way to secure us without literally giving up every civil right we have, as long as anyone can get the weapons of destruction like this. The best way to the best way to secure ourselves is to stop being so So I guess we're just beaten down on the gun issue. We got to take control.
But I'm like you. I think riding in the car, getting killed in the car is just,
How many people do you know who won't get in a car anymore because they know statistically that they could be killed? How many people do you know who say, "Oh no, I can't, and I can't take the bus because I know," but they will literally be terrorized into the fetal position, and with their AK-47s in hand, because ISIS might come and kill them. This is the definition of irrationality, absolute irrationality. It's nuts.
Exactly.
God, people are stupid.
Okay then.
All right, goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. It's not stupid. It's something, it's wiring. So isn't that interesting? You can, a bunch of conservatives, people who vote Republican, when put in a study and talking about that they will die, and then remembering 9/11, and then asked about the Middle East, say, we got to go in there and we got to go to war. We got to get our military spending up. We got to this. And another group that identify as liberals, with the same talk of their mortality, the same talk of 9/11, when asked about what do you do in the Middle East, they do not have that reaction, because that's not where they go when they're afraid. God. You do know. The most astonishing thing is that immediately after this horror on Thursday, this latest massacre, every single Republican in the United States Senate, except one, voted against legislation that would prevent anyone on the terror watch list from being able to buy a gun. Understand this. These are the Republicans who say they're tough say that the president's not tough enough on ISIS. Democrats aren't tough enough on ISIS. And yet they will not vote for a bill that says, if you're on our FBI's and CIA's consolidated terror watch list, you can't buy a gun. That's reasonable, I think. The Republicans who tell you they will keep you safe say, no, if you're on the terror list, you can buy all the guns you want. Is that amazing? Is that screw your head up? You know why? You know why they say some American might be on that list by accident. And the fact that that one American would be denied his right, his Second Amendment right, to purchase a gun is so abhorrent to them that they refuse, in the event that that could happen, they refuse to vote for a bill that would prevent people on the terrorist watch list from buying guns. The day of the massacre. That's what Republicans say. Are you out of your mind and they will keep you safe? Dear God. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you know who that senator was?
Yes, it was Senator Kirk of Illinois.
Okay, because there was a vote last week that I was hoping Toomey gets out of office, but there was one that he did last week that.
Well, he was on. No, it wasn't Toomey. Toomey must have voted with the majority to say, no, you keep those terrorists. Terrorists should be able to buy guns.
There was one last week along the lines of his bill several years ago that I think he came up again last week, and I think he voted with it. I mean, of course, it's his bill, so that's not surprising.
Well, here's another. You might be thinking of. There was also a vote taken since San Bernardino that would have expanded background checks at gun shows and online firearm sales.
Right.
And that also went down to defeat. That might have been the one with Toomey. Went down to defeat because almost all Republicans, and I don't know who voted against it, but I'll tell you, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, Lindsey Graham, all the would-be presidents, they voted against it.
Right. But I would want to say, I agree with everything that you're saying, but I would say that, it is time that, all of us need to stop, just talking and actually do something.
What?
And, I do know a bunch of people that are starting to get involved in this ceasefire PA organization, and I don't know what they're going to do, but it's time we have to do something instead of just complaining that nothing can ever get done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me included in that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, so I'm trying to find out what all they're doing, but I do think at least that, that's an organization that's trying to do something along with several others, and I'm not sure which is the one that will actually accomplish something, but, if you look at the history of the NRA, 15 years ago, they were back on their heels, too, and they didn't just sit around doing nothing. They actually thought, what can we do? So it's our turn to do that.
Exactly. Stop wringing our hands and act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know that's what me and a few people I know are starting. That's
Good.
what we're determined to do, and I would hope you would join that lot.
Okay.
In fact, I think there's a local guy from Pittsburgh. I can't think of his name offhand, but he might be a good guest to have on the show.
Okay.
Okay.
If you do, let me know. Okay.
I can email you.
Okay,
in
do.
a few minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. William writes, not to take anything away from anyone's real sense of fear, but I have to wonder if people are also looking for excuses not to go out, not to get to know other people, excuses to stay home and watch more Fox. They won't give up the activities that pay them, or the activities they love most. In the name of terror, it's much like the whole free-range parenting discussion with people saying, oh, but everything is so bad now, you just can't do that anymore. I lived in East Liberty from 1985 through 2006. It wasn't fun, but I survived. So I am very unimpressed by most claims of people being immobilized by terror. I don't know. I don't know. So there was so much news in the last 5 days, that I didn't even have an opportunity to note that now women can serve in combat missions in the military. And I'm sure for the get tough types, that is bad news, because the feminization of the military can only mean weakness. I also want to point out the good news, the sort of unbelievable news that Jimmy Carter says his cancer's gone because of an experimental drug. Now, it might come back, but the guy's 91 years old. I mean, if he's beat it back at 91, he said he didn't have any ill effects. He's been working the whole time. I was wondering about him about a month ago and thinking, geez, I wonder how he's doing. He's probably, I just assumed, dying. Nope. That was pretty amazing news. And then there was something that happened that I don't know if it passed it whizzed by you or you didn't know about it, but I think it was also on Friday that the Republican would-bes went before a group of Jewish Republicans. Now understand, back when I was a kid, that would be such, I would have said, they're Jewish Republicans? I would have been so astonished. What? It's like, Jews are really one of the most solid Democratic bloc other than African Americans. But there are more Jewish Republicans now, mostly based on, again, fear-mongering and stuff about Israel. Now, when you see these Republicans pander to a Jewish audience, it is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. A friend of mine who watches Morning Joe told me that they had put together some sound bites from the various speeches of the Republicans to these Jewish Republicans, showing the level of pandering. That's all they did. They pulled the pandering parts. Hysterically funny on one hand, creepy on another. And in the case of Donald Trump, outright offensive. Donald Trump gets up and says something like, hey, I know you people are good negotiators. So am I. He starts with a whole bunch of Jews in the room, and he immediately goes into the stereotype Jews are good negotiators. He said, I've negotiated with you people. He said something else that was like classic. Really, stereotype Jew. Unbelievable. And he thinks he's buttering them up. And you hear some nervous laughter in the room. John Kasich, oh my God. He gets up in front of these group of Jews and he says, when I was a little boy, my father said to me, Johnny, I want to tell you that if you ever need a friend, then you want to look for a Jew. Because Jews make the best friends or something. And I'm sure. Do you know how offensive that is? First of all, how absurd. I question whether it's even true. Why would anybody say such a silly thing? And then, yes, my daddy told me to befriend Jews because Jews are just the greatest friends. Come on. And then I forget, was it him who said? One of them got up and said, I happened to be watching Schindler's List last night. And then there was Ben Carson. who talked about, he kept calling Hamas hummus. So he was saying, and we are not taking on Hamas. The Israelis have to live under the terror of Hamas. And you want to just scream out, and don't forget Baba Ganoush. So apparently all the people on that show, when they finished these clips, were just... They couldn't... there was laughter, and then there was just total disbelief at what they had just seen. But, speaking of Trump, he's a real threat right now, isn't he? This is playing into his hands. They're doing more and more research about who the hell it is that is behind him, and are they able to be peeled away? And there's, all the great political minds are trying to figure it out, because it looks like everything the people in the know knew or said would happen not only hasn't happened, he's picking up support now since this. And the support he has is solidifying behind him. So they're saying nobody else but this guy. This guy. And it has to do with the way he speaks. He's a classic demagogue. Classic. You want to know what a demagogue is? There it is, right in front of you. Although, unlike a lot of demagogues, he seems capable of connecting with people in a way that shows that he's sometimes funny. He's charismatic, not to me, but apparently to a whole hell of a lot of people. He can control and hold an audience with his blather. There's nothing he can say that offends his supporters or gives them second thoughts. So the chances of him literally screwing the Republicans up is increasingly looking plausible, possible. And ISIS is helping. It really is beyond belief. And yet there it is playing out right in front of us. It's astonishing. So, enough. If you have access to the Post-Gazette, and I did not bring it in because I frankly was so dumbfounded by this column that I knew that if I tried to parse it in any way, that if I tried to respond to it, I would just get all tangled up because this column made my head explode. And it's a column on page 2 of today's Post-Gazette that is by, Daily. Why am I blanking on her name? I want to say Ruth. Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann Baker, Daily Baker, Candlestick Maker, and then somebody else. She's had a few names. Wow. Just read the first 2 paragraphs, and you'll be You'll be walking around going blah, 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 for the rest of the day. She somehow blames us, Democrats, for Trump's ascendancy. She blames Democrats. And I could not, for the life of me, follow her reasoning. I could not. She got her stuff from, she's quoting like Rush Limbaugh and all these right-wingers. The world these people live in. She says in that column that immediately after the news of San Bernardino started coming out, that all of these major news operations tried to blame it on the right to lifers by saying that there was a Planned Parenthood blocks away. Did any of you hear that? I did not either. Where do they get this stuff? Did somebody say it? As I said the next day, the amount of misinformation that was passed on in the first hours of that event was astonishing. So there was nothing but speculation coming on the heels of the other Planned Parenthood event. I can see where they might have said, well, there is a Planned Parenthood, but she suggested it's all part of some fucking plot. Well, never mind. Read it if you have a strong stomach. Hello? Hello?
Hey, Lynn, it's Roger.
Hi, Roger. Hello?
Hey, hello, Lynn, it's Roger.
Hi.
Hey, I read that column this morning.
What'd you think? What was that?
I think they don't believe in self-determination and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and they're victims too, I guess. I mean, aren't they the party that of self-determination and, all of a sudden we're dictating who their nominee is going to be? Boy, that poor victim.
I guess that's so they're powerless, huh?
I mean, come off it.
Isn't it's just the column is, I know her and I know she's a smart cookie. But that is the most ludicrous column I've ever read. Oy.
Is it just maybe a plea or just a cry of, she can't believe Trump is there too, and
yeah, she's freaked out.
Yeah,
she's freaked out, and she's not willing to acknowledge that Trump. There it is, that hideous Trump. That is the personification of what her party has become. Good God, the Democrats created him? I don't think so. He ain't running on our side.
I mean, maybe for a change, if he's their nominee, do the Republicans just stay at home that on
yeah.
Year?
Well, that's going to be something. I still don't believe he's going to get the nomination. But
I said this before, but I saw this movie clip again. Stephen King's movie The Dead Zone.
Yeah.
Where Martin Sheen plays a political wannabe. Anybody who thinks who's hanging with some Trump people should sit down and watch that movie with them.
Okay.
Martin Sheen played a crazy guy who really pandered to people's fears, got what he wanted, and then he ended up nuking the world. So he would have if the hero had.
Yeah. Well, I can see Trump doing it. That's for sure. Hey, thank you. Gotta run. Run. Bye. I know our time is up, but I just want Ray to get Ray's email in. Ray's always provocative. Lynn, we have a modern model for a solution, and that's the IRA. During the troubles of the 70s and 80s, the IRA took the fight to English soil. I have spoken to former rebels, and the noble reason for their actions was to give the English a taste of what it was like to live in Belfast. Terror was exported as a lesson. The Irish I know who lived in Great Britain during the attacks tell me they know what Muslims in this country feel like now. They kept their accents in check and their heads down. It wasn't until Bush threatened the Sinn Féin money raising in this country that the IRA came to the table. We need to call out the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates and all those billionaire sheikhs and tell them the money stops if the fighting doesn't. And the guns are out of the barn. The French weapons came from stockpiles from the 80s and 90s. If we stop making and selling today, there are enough around for every man, woman, and child. Yeah, well, that's not a reason not to stop somewhere so that in 100 years, maybe, we've cleaned it out. For me, that's not enough. I know it doesn't have much impact, maybe in our lifetimes, but you got to turn the spigot off, even if we're already up to our eyeballs in water. If we stop making, and then he says, turn off the dependency money to the Middle East. I so agree with that, just like Jimmy Carter told us to 35 years ago. And you know what? I mean, it is true. Our cozy relationship with Saudi Arabia, which is essentially at the base of all of this crazed fundamentalist Muslim crap, is mind-boggling. It's the same kind of craziness that allows for like tough, I'll keep you safe Republicans refusing to close that loophole and still allowing people on the terror list to buy guns. We say we're fighting this kind of terror. And the terror has its start in the Wahhabism, in the exact kind of fundamental Islam that Saudi Arabia has been peddling around the world and funding with its money. There is a reason Osama bin Laden came out of Saudi Arabia. There's even a reason this woman, who we've now come to know, the latest killer, came out of Saudi Arabia. And we give those bastards with all their money and their oil, we give them money. Oh, all right, enough. Bye. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.